Welcome to the Out on a Limb podcast. We are all interconnected to a greater web of consciousness. Our aim is to open your mind to a new world through having open-minded discussions about what we perceive our reality to be.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Out on a Limb podcast with your hosts Samantha and Allison and Will. And we are here with another stream of consciousness because we want to update you all with all of the exciting things that come into our awareness on the regular. We have sessions that we do. We have our own intuition things that come in, or our own work that we're trying to do. Just always something exciting, and we want to update you all.
Well, and this is how this whole thing started. Is just these conversations, wanting to have
sitting around
like the fly on the wall whole thing, and be able to talk and
sitting around drinking coffee and just chit chatting. So
exactly,
you're
good
drinking
point.
water, but okay.
I had my coffee earlier,
and I have tea.
so in your orange cup.
And you don't want to know what
I
Samantha...
have vodka. No,
That's why she's always so cheerful and happy and laughing.
Okay.
Anyway, that's not. No. Okay, so one of the things that I want to talk about, one of the things that we are going to talk about in a few minutes is a documentary that somebody came down here and filmed of us, but we're going to get into that.
Well, it's not a documentary. It's going to be it was
more of a short.
It's an interview. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a follow-on to the documentary.
it's a short
That's what it is.
documentary.
Right.
It's a mini doc.
I'm just teasing it right this minute because by the time this airs in January, that might be out, and we'll.
It may or may not be out yet.
Yeah, we'll share. It'll be out relatively soon. And he thought January.
Yeah, tell him to hush.
I'm trying.
But before we get into all of that exciting news, I want to talk about the fairies again. We've talked a little bit about inner earth beings and terra beings and different things and kind of dipped our toe in there. But for whatever reason, in November, I started feeling this call to explore with them more. And this started because I belong to the Beyond Quantum Healers forum, quantumhealers.com forum. And so when I get on there and I read some of the posts that people have posted and I comment on them and stuff, somebody got into the fairy realm and how a fairy had shown up in one of their sessions, and that this fairy was one of those trickster fairies. And the practitioner, I guess, was fairly intuitive and could see what it looked like. And it was so funny looking that she just started cracking up and she couldn't take it seriously, and it got mad. The fairy got mad because I guess he wanted to startle her or, be important or something like that and play tricks and be kind of sneaky. And she just kept cracking up. And she was actually writing the post about, I know I felt like I was kind of disrespectful to it and I could not help myself. And how can I keep myself under control and more respectful during sessions and stuff like that? And people were giving their advice, but it was hysterical. But at any rate, somebody had commented on that post and said that if you want to get to know them, because there's so many different fairies and pixies and brownies and all of that kind of stuff, that this particular book and card deck has a lot of their pictures on them, and that you could get to know them. And for whatever reason, it just piqued my interest. I thought, I want to know what they look like and what their roles are and all the differences, because in case they show up in sessions or something, or I can call on them, right? Because they can help you.
Maybe that's your next book to channel.
I don't know. I don't get that sense just yet. But I did ask the collective about, this is the other thing, the reason that it was interesting is you saw our show in early December, I believe it was, with Carol Cottrell. And one of the questions that we talked about in that one at the end was, we asked her if she knew her galactic connections and all of that sort of stuff. And she said she had connected with the fairy realm and that she felt that they were kind of galactic, right? So a few days after that, we did channel about that in a private channeling and asked, are the galactics related to the fairy realm? So I wanted to share that with you guys because we kind of left you hanging, but I said I would look into that. And they did say that yes, of course, and we guessed this, that they are related to the Agarthans, which are the inner earth beings. And the reason is because the inner earth beings come to the surface on occasion. And so the fairies are, what did they say exactly? That they communicate between the upper realm and the inner earth, that they are protectors of the inner earth sanctum. So they protect that for those beings from the surface, of course, and that they observe the human realm.
And make fun of us and play
Oh, of
tricks on us.
course. They are kind of, and that's,
Well,
I
that
think,
didn't come through, but
they did say something about that. But they imply that they can help you, but also, they like to play games. They're like children, right? Let's see here. They said, the fairies, the sprites, and the gnomes are the ones that protect the spaces in which the Agarthans come and go. And communicate back and forth. Oh, here's what they said. They do like to play with humans. They like to play with the animals also. So encourage them to be, the fairies, to be in any space that you're in, especially that's in the outdoor realm. And you encourage them by leaving trinkets and different things for them to hold and play with. The more that you leave for them, the more they'll begin to interact with you, and the more that they will even protect, in a way, your space that you have for the outdoors. They'll protect your outdoor space if you play with them. Didn't you talk about leaving something for them once?
Yeah, that when we were
That
walking
house.
around where the horse was, we did the whole thing with the horse and the vortex and stuff. And we'd walked through this one area and, we were like, okay, there are fairies here and they're wanting, and they like bright, shiny
Yes,
objects, things
trinkets.
that will glint and, and shine. And I think that's really cool. And as you're saying that, I'm having this really strong nudge to go out into my yard, my backyard especially, and around this one, I've got this one huge pine tree that I used to think, oh, this is a great tree. I love it so much. And then I was like, oh my God, it's big enough now that it can fall on our house if there's a hurricane. But this tree is just so wise. It's just like there's just this. It just exudes this, like I am dominant.
Right.
I am here.
The presence,
And I swear that there's got to be like fairies communing at the
for sure.
around it. Yeah. So I want to put some stuff out around that.
But didn't you say that you had a client or something that had a house and she was trying to sell it, or there were crystals buried in the yard or something like that?
Oh yeah, that was the other one. Yeah, where she was buying a lot, and in that one. I was saying, the fairies were really upset because the people next door were throwing stuff, trash.
Right.
They were throwing trash over.
Yeah.
And so, degrading the space. And that, before she gets ownership of it, to go ahead and just start throwing crystals and things like that. And I'm telling her that, and she's like, oh my God, I've already started doing that. Like, she just knew. She just was like, here, you need an amethyst, and you need,
little piece of this, little piece of that.
which was so hysterical because it was like, yep, that's what they want, and she could
isn't
just
that
feel
funny?
it.
When we were out and I think it was out in California when we went out years ago. Remember that little place? It was like a little gift shop, but it had a bunch of, I think it was cypress knees all over the place that they had painted up, right? And then they had little, it felt like a little fairy garden because it had like all the cypress knees were all painted, and there were all little trinkets in between them, like little pieces
how
of shiny
pretty.
glass and little gems and stuff.
I remember that, right in the middle of the town.
And I wonder, maybe that's what we need to do with our cypress, with all of our cypress trees.
We're getting such inspiration.
All right.
Okay, you guys, so if you do the same, I was going to say take pictures, but I don't think you can upload pictures.
We can upload. I think we can upload.
On our stuff, but you can't leave a comment with a picture.
Oh, you can't.
Not on YouTube,
No,
unfortunately.
but we could if we do paint those cypress knees.
Yeah, very
That's
cool.
pretty cool. But I wanted to show you guys the book if you are interested. I guess this guy, can you read his name?
Brian Froud.
Froud, I think is how you say it.
I'll put it up on the screen.
He has
big.
Like
book-
proud, but with an F. Froud.
Yeah, he has other books about fairies and whatnot. But this is the one that comes with the card deck. I've never had a card deck. What?
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Right, I've
Like
never had a
that.
card deck that comes with this hard-bound, huge
that's-
book, right? And again, somebody gifted this for my birthday, which was wonderful. My other friend, Samantha. It was very nice. And so it comes with a picture of the card and what they are in charge of, I guess, and how you can. It also talks about the. You know how in astrology we have the shadow side and the positive side? It
Light and
talks
shadow.
about them as well that way. They have like a light and a dark side.
Well, that
How
would
they
make
can-
sense.
Yeah, how they can benefit you and then.
Interesting.
I just know that whenever I go and do anything, like even when I'm just cutting back plants and stuff,
Yeah.
I always, I apologize and I say it's for your best good because I
yeah.
know that there's like, and I kind of warn the beings around. It's
Right.
like back off a little bit, just move out. And I don't know. It's just something I can't, it's like a conscious thing. Like I've got to do it. It's
I'm
kinda
constant.
weird.
I mean, with this, you know how many plants I have as far as the 2 greenhouses and all the other stuff. I'm constantly doing that. If I've got to cut something back or I've got to, and I don't like to throw anything away, but I mean, I don't have enough room to grow if I cut something away. So,
Yeah.
I always, I'm giving it back. So like if I have to cut it out of the greenhouse and I have to put it, I've got a burn pile down by the water. Well, but I mean, but when I put it there, I offer it up. I don't just throw
Yeah.
it on there.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
obviously, if they're just weeds from the yard, they're just going on the burn pile. But anything that I've been growing for some time, if I cut it, I'm kind of offering it up as, hey,
Well, back to Mother Earth.
right.
That's a good point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good
to
point.
nourish the backyard.
Instead of
and stuff.
throwing it in plastic bags
Right,
and
and
sending it to a landfill.
Right. Exactly.
Anymore, it kind of hurts my heart to cut trees or things down. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, but sometimes you're helping the trees when you're
Well,
doing
right.
that. So I mean, like, they're bending over and the weight of it and everything, and it's just so sometimes it's helpful.
Well, we know the circle of life and the death and destruction in order to provide the nourishment to create a new, right?
Right.
And so sometimes
Right.
burning land, for example, can allow it to flourish again. So, yeah, I mean, there is
Definitely.
purpose in it. It's still, you have to get into the right mindset when
Right. Yeah. I
or
agree.
when I have to kill a spider or something like that. I mean,
I had to do that the other day when I was in my tub. And I'm telling you, the guilt that was going through
Right?
me, and I'm like, I have to get through this guilt before I do this. Otherwise, that's going to hang with me.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, this is my territory, not yours. You happen to be here. I can't just go and let you just wander off and get into my bed, possibly.
But I didn't see that guilt with all those stink bugs.
no, I'm sorry, I have no guilt with stink bugs. Lord have mercy. Have we
Okay.
talked to our audience about the stink bug
I don't know.
problem?
And
Oh my gosh.
your stink bug is right. Your thing of stink bugs is right up there with my things of palmetto bugs. So it's like
Roaches, in other
roaches. Yeah. So
Okay.
I have no
Can I tell
sympathy.
you
I have
about
no
that?
sympathy for
Now,
them.
okay, stream of conscious. Come on, guys. We got to do a little bit of this stuff. So my brand new little kitten, he's just so sweet and he never
Yes, he's
growls or
cute.
anything. Well, and the other one growls all the time. He does not growl. And Brody's leaning over the bed and he's, playing with the cat. And I'm hearing this, whoa, and I'm going, what? And I'm going, Brody, what are you doing to make my cat angry? No, that's got to be your cat because it wouldn't be my cat. And he's like, no, this is your cat. And he's just kind of laughing to himself in a mischievous way. So I
Right.
know that something's
Something's up, yeah.
So I go over and I look around the corner and he has a cockroach in his mouth. And the
cat does?
Yes.
Oh,
so
my
he caught
gosh.
it for me.
Oh.
Thankfully.
Oh, my gosh.
But then I'm like, okay, I'm like, drop it. And he finally drops it and I grab it and I'm like, Brody, I'm like, this is a real segmenty one. This is really soft.
Oh,
I was like
my
going,
gosh.
oh. Anyway, so I didn't feel any guilt there. I felt
Yeah.
just, so yeah, it's a circle of life thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. No, stink bugs and I have some kind of contract, and I got to figure that out.
Nope. We're not figuring it out. You're figuring it out.
Like that.
That's for you to work on, just like it is for me to work on the roaches.
So should I share my fairy story?
Sure.
Yeah,
really
share your
cool.
fairies. I thought you just shared 2 fairy stories. You got another?
I got another one.
Good. Okay.
So this is super cool. I was, this is during COVID, and I was, somebody booked a session, and I went over to their house not knowing how many people would be there or anything. Well, it turns out it's this husband and wife and their daughter. And she's like a teenager.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of going, okay, this is interesting. And I sit down and I say, okay. And they go, well, this reading session, this is for our daughter. She asked to have this for her birthday. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a birthday gift. I'm like,
Right.
wow, no pressure there. And she's got this kind of, she reminded me of like a Scottish girl, like
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
kind of frizzy curly hair, and it's kind of has this reddish hue, and maybe that's more Irish, I don't know. And anyway, she just had these eyes that just danced, lit up. And her parents were like older parents, so
Okay.
like she'd come late. And so I go into the reading and just starting to feel her out. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And she's like, what? They're all excited. I'm like, This is going to be really weird when I say this. I've never experienced this before, but I have a lot of nevers experienced before,
Right.
you know, kind of
Right.
things.
Right.
And I'm like, but did you know that you're a fairy? And she's like, what? And I'm like, you're like
Wait,
a hybrid.
How old is she? Is she like a minor?
Yeah, she was like 16, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're a hybrid. Like there is, I don't know how that works. I don't know how the energy
Right,
of that
right.
works, but I'm like, you are so creative. Your mind is like you're quick-witted and so full of light and sunshine, but you've got this kind of side of you that's kind of playful, but it's playful, mischievous in a good way.
Right.
And I'm like, you know, it's like you just float. You just, the way that you dance and stuff. And I'm like, that is a passion of yours. I'm, describing all of this. Well, it turns out and I said, conventional education, you can't be doing that. I can't see you in that. You know,
Right. And her parents are probably like, what in the heck did we just pay for?
They're just like beaming.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is going on? And they say, well, she goes to a special school where she only has to go for like 3 hours a day. And because she's a dancer, and they're just like, and yes, we know there's something different about her. We've noticed since the day she was born.
Wow.
And I mean, like goosebumps, man. This girl was just, I'm like, I feel so honored to get to meet you.
Right.
And I hope that other people
cool.
recognize that there's
That's cool.
something very unusual with you. It was the neatest thing.
and
The
she even
energy
looked
from her.
the part, it sounds like.
Oh yeah, like she contained it was such an interesting. I have no idea. I didn't go into what her life's purpose was or anything like that, but to contain that energy within a body. So there's some, it's not like okay, her mom had affairs or
Right.
relations with a fairy, but she's infused with that energy.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy.
Yeah, well, energetically, you can be that hybrid.
So maybe
we
she's
all
a
are.
changeling.
Galactic.
Maybe I don't know what you call it, but I was just like, but her parents, like the moment I'm saying it, their eyes are lighting up.
Wow.
They're going, she sees it.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
recognizes it.
That's
I was
cool.
afraid they were mad that you were talking her out of college or something.
No,
Right,
it was
right.
crazy. I was like, the conventional world is not for you at all. Like,
Yeah.
and it was just, it gave them permission to be outside of the box even further.
Yeah.
So,
So that's really neat. The only other thing I was going to mention about the fairy realm was when I knew I got this for my birthday in early November, and then I didn't really have time to study it or look at it. And I knew that we were going to the mountain property over Thanksgiving, and that it was freezing cold. We weren't going to be hiking, so I had time to just dedicate to the fairy realm. And so in my mind, I'm thinking about them and communicating that I'm going to be getting to know them better. And I had misplaced, because they're also good at helping you find things, apparently. But I had misplaced, I have a little Superwoman zip drive that I like, and it had all of the origin story stuff on it.
She also has a Darth Vader one too. That yeah. So anyway,
I don't think I've used that one yet.
no, it's in my office. Yeah.
Well, I don't
you
buy this.
will.
I don't buy this stuff for myself, but I get these gifts at work sometimes. But anyway, so I have this cute little zip drive, and I usually keep it in my purse in a zipper pouch. All my zip drives that have important stuff, even book stuff, though the book is published. So I go and I look for it for some reason, and it was not in my purse. And I'm like, oh my gosh, where would it be? Because I only take it out if I have to put it into my computer, download something, and I put it right back in my purse. I couldn't find it. I asked Will, he has no idea where it is. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't have lost that. So I talked to my fairy guides and I said, hey, help me out here. I am going to get to know you better, I promise. But in the meantime, can you please help me
That'd
out?
be fine, Mike.
And this was at work when I realized I didn't have it. So I get home literally at 3:30. I walk straight into my bedroom to look for it in the first place that I think it might be, in my top drawer of my dresser, and it was right there. And I'm thinking, how did it even get in the top drawer? Like, why would I have put it there? I can't imagine. So I don't know if maybe there was a fairy that was playing a trick on me and put it there.
well, and I know that they do.
Just so you would trust. And,
Maybe so
yeah.
I would trust and ask. I don't know.
And I know they do that whole thing where you're trying to find your car keys and you can't find
Right.
it, and you look 3 times at the same
Yeah.
spot and
Right,
it's not there,
and
and then you go back and it's
it's
there.
right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and they've just dematerialized
Right,
or whatever,
they
or
cloak it.
yeah,
And
something.
I'll no joke tell you that part of me is afraid to dive into the fairy realm because I don't like. I'm not.
You're not a
I
prankster
don't like
and a
Okay, but
jokester.
maybe
pranks and tricks.
But like with the stink bugs, maybe that's why you need to go there.
I don't know. I get scared. I don't like
Oh,
people
What do you
playing.
tell?
You are
Right. What do you
I
tell
don't
your?
like people playing tricks
What
on
do you
me.
What do you tell your clients all day long? Trust. Just trust. Just trust.
I know, but
surrender
I don't
and
like-
trust.
Okay, we're going to work on this
I don't
with
like
her. Everybody comment, tell her, trust, go for it. Walk your talk.
Well, I did trust.
What you resist
and
persists.
I got to know them. I just
Right.
don't like. He knows.
Oh, I know.
He's a practical joker. He thinks.
I wish I had a second wife in the house that I could play jokes on and because
I'm so sorry.
I do like a good practical joke. I don't know. I always have. And
I don't like to do them to people.
No.
And I don't like them done to me. I don't.
No.
It's uncomfortable.
Do you know my favorite one is this is good. Okay, little side note here. Lift up the toilet, take saran wrap, put it
No,
across, put the
that's
toilet
not-
seat back down.
See, I don't. That's not
rubber
funny.
bands on the sink sprayer
No.
handle. Got my mom. I can't tell you how many April Fools I've gotten my mom on that. So yeah.
So that to me is not funny, and I don't like it. So I would not do that to somebody else. But why do I have all these people in my life that like to do that to others? Oh my gosh, I don't get you guys. And my friend Leanne, my longtime friend Leanne, loves to play practical
Yeah.
jokes. She'd call her mother and tell her she was pregnant or something. Some crazy
Right.
stuff.
That's I don't know. That's a little over the top.
Anywho, all right. So let's get back to this. That's all I had on the fairies. Did you guys have
Okay.
anything else on the fairies?
I know.
That was it for the fairies.
And by the way, it includes, maybe there are more, but fairies, gnomes, sprites, pixies, elves, brownies, and if you guys know other ones, let me know. But that's
Just make a note. So I'm going to put that image up and a link.
Image of the
yeah,
book?
and maybe even a link to it. I don't know.
the fairy.
Yay, I was a brownie. I
There
think
was
I
a,
mentioned that before, that I was a brownie at boarding school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you did. That's
Yeah,
funny.
so we were
I was a
mischievous.
brownie, Girl Scout brownie.
There's a movie. I think it's called Pixie. It's with Will Smith, and it's about elves and pixies but it's. Let's just say
little
it's
more
let's
X-rated?
no it let's say well no it's action, so it's set
Oh,
in set in
yeah.
Los Angeles in the future, and yeah, it's a whole thing. So those that have watched it,
Interesting.
it's an interesting movie. It's
Is it?
yes, it's interesting. That's
I
all
like
I'll
Will
say.
Smith's sappy movies more than I like his action movies.
Yeah,
but
it's very So
at any rate. So our friend Brian Corey Dobbs, who we have interviewed on this podcast quite a while back.
not too far back, but yeah,
6-8 months. Maybe not.
He was so interesting.
yeah.
He is
was
interesting.
very
he did.
interesting.
He's a documentary filmmaker. He did Blue Planet Red.
Right.
You need to look that up if you are interested in Mars. And he interviewed a ton of interesting scientists, legit people like Avi Loeb. He was telling us when he came.
Yeah.
He came here the other day to film us, and we went out to eat. We're sitting at dinner, and he said, "Yeah, you should have seen us." We're his partner and we're sitting in Avi Loeb's living room for this interview that he was doing and eating potato chips and stuff.
Well, because Avi Loeb offered him potato chips,
Yeah.
he's like, no, I'm okay, and he's still just here's
He
some
brought
potato
it
chips.
anyway. And I'm
like-
sure they were nervous, they
of
didn't want
course.
to eat and all
Right.
that kind of stuff. So, but anyway, I'm like, you were in Avi Loeb's living room? I mean, that is so cool. These connections, when
Yeah.
you know that you're on your path and you know that you're aligned and you're just excited and you're doing your thing, these intersections just
The doors just keep
miraculous
opening. Yeah.
people or experiences come into your life. It's so much fun. And so that's what he's experiencing right now.
And remember, he said like that this whole thing with Mars was like such a
Yeah.
a left turn
Oh,
from
yeah.
the direction he was headed, and the
Yeah,
whole thing has just
yeah.
been like,
And even more so now, we've rocked his world. We've like kicked the door completely wide open to the metaphysical and stuff.
Like a SWAT team going in hot.
And
Yeah.
he's finding now all these connections between the scientific stuff that he was interested in and how it resonates with the origin story. And anyway, so
Wow.
he wanted to come and interview us.
For it'll be about an hour long presentation that'll go up on his YouTube channel sometime in January. Yeah.
So
can't
he-
wait to see it.
And it was
actually,
very fascinating because it was like the
Oh, it's a big production.
The
big
treehouse
production.
the treehouse was transformed into like a sound stage. I mean, lights everywhere, and yeah, it was a whole thing. Makeup.
Ginger was doing
I
makeup.
saw that. I was like, Will's getting makeup.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my
Oh, yeah.
God.
I mean, they had the lights, the makeup, they had the drone. They were doing drone footage out back.
Yeah.
We were walking around in our backyard to get just
Yeah.
shots. You know, it was really
my
cool.
God.
It's going to be
B-roll.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was really cool.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, he also filmed. They came to Unity Church where we did a channeling
The night
on
before, yeah.
Tuesday. Yeah,
How did that go?
Very well.
amazing.
Very well.
Yeah, amazing.
You know, I used to go every once in a while when I was down in Tampa. I'd go to Unity churches to listen to people like y'all.
Nice.
You know,
Oh, really?
and just go, oh my gosh, I want to know that person.
Cool.
And
Exactly.
Here I'm doing a podcast with those people. And
Right.
Exactly. I feel the same way. When we first started awakening and we would go to mediumship circles or whatever, and I'm thinking, God, how cool would it be to have friends like that? And I'm like, that's all that I have.
That's
is
all we have
friends.
now. Right. Yeah.
It's so funny.
Yeah.
The people that I used to look at and admire are now really good friends of mine. That's so funny.
very cool.
So he came in and he asked us a lot of questions about channeling because, you know, everything that he's done and everything that's on his YouTube channel is scientific. And so he interviewed like Army remote viewers they looked at Mars and what they saw in terms of life. His question is, was there ever life on Mars and is there now life on Mars?
Right.
And NASA just will
Kind
not
of
go
both
there.
sides kind of both sides of the coin.
Yeah, they won't go there, and they just keep ignoring the elephant in the room, like the big, what is it? The pyramid on
yeah,
there,
the big-
and there's a face and stuff, you know, and NASA's like, nothing to see here.
Yeah. Don't
We
look.
don't see
Don't
it.
look over here.
Yeah.
well, because they've got to do as much as they can,
Yep.
you know, and control all of that until, you know, they've
It's-
got a handle. They know what the deal is.
Yeah.
Well, until Elon Musk lands there and gives us live stream as
exactly.
you know.
So have you ever channeled, did he ask about Elon Musk? Have you guys ever channeled Elon
We-
Musk to see where he's
I
from?
think we did, didn't we?
I asked
Early
about
on,
him
yeah.
for the book.
Yeah.
I asked about him
Yeah.
as part of the channelings for the book or the origin story, but I did not include it in the book.
Oh,
There's a lot of B-roll for the book. Yeah.
It was suggested by somebody that I not include his name in the book.
Yeah.
So I didn't, but it was interesting. April, what's her name on YouTube? She's a remote viewer and
oh,
channeling.
EA. Elizabeth.
April Elizabeth. Yeah, I don't really watch too much of her stuff, but I saw a headline that came across in YouTube in my stream.
She was talking about
and
it,
she remote viewed Elon Musk. I guess communicated with his higher self or whatever. So
Yeah.
if anybody's
So
interested
was she
in
correct? Well, I mean, not correct. Sorry. I mean, it's different perceptions
align?
because
Yeah.
you could live
Sure.
so many different lives. You could have been a Martian, you know, at one time, and
that,
then
well, what she found out resonated with what we understood from what we asked. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it was similar.
that that's one of his strongest
There's-
profiles or whatever.
There's a deep connection there.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's very galactic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just trying to make that point so people understand it's not like you've lived your whole existence on Mars and then you come to Earth and then you're having, you know, like that we embody so many different
Yeah.
points and experiences. So it's not just the one thing.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was going to say similar to our client that we had this morning. So
Right. I wanted to get into that too. So
Okay.
some of the questions that Corey, though, wanted to talk about in the interview, first of all, again, because his channel and all of his experience is mostly scientific and high-level scientists, he wanted, I guess his viewers aren't familiar perhaps with channeling. And so he
I
wanted
wonder
to
how many
kind of,
viewers are going to kind of go, ooh.
yeah, so he wanted to really bridge that gap. And one of the first questions that he asked was, what about the skeptics? And so he asked me Tuesday night before the interview to think about that because that was going to be a big piece. You know, a lot of the people that watch might be skeptics. So we covered that base. We covered what is channeling and how it's like mediumship because a lot of people are familiar with mediums and are okay with that concept. And then he really wanted to get into Mars and what we knew about Mars, which is a whole chapter in our book. And then the last chapter in our book is about the pyramids, the Council of Constructors and Builders. So he had a lot of questions about that and what the pyramids were used
Interesting.
for.
And as you mentioned to him kind of off camera, that it's kind of he's breaking news. It's like breaking news because really a lot of the information that was brought forth from them hasn't really been put out there.
Well, I don't think I've not heard any of it
Right.
out in mainstream yet about the pyramids, even like Graham Hancock and so forth.
Right, to the extent of what was put through in the book. Yeah.
Well, and Graham, I always wonder with Graham Hancock if, like, does he ever consult with anyone who is a channel or whatever? Or is he just,
I don't know.
Brian mentioned something that he actually wrote a book about Mars.
Yeah, he wrote a book about Mars. But
fingerprint of the
whether
god?
he
No.
considers
Not that
I
one.
forget who that is, but yeah.
whether he considers channelers though, or if he thinks
Right.
that's non-scientific, he might offline and might not talk about it. You know, I don't know.
he's just having such a hard time as it is.
Right, because
on the edge
because
that
they look
he's
at
on,
right
yeah.
because they classify him as a pseudoscientist,
That's a
which
very
I
good
hope
point.
I hope that goes away here soon, because there are a lot of people who are they may not be archaeologists or scientists, but they have a deep background in metrology, quality fields, as far as understanding how things work.
Isn't that the guy that was on Rogan? Is that
Yeah,
what you're
yeah,
talking about?
Christopher Dunn, and different things like that, where they applied different types of applied sciences can now be used to understand some of these carvings that that have such a within a thousandths of an inch of being symmetrical, and what type of technology was used for that. I mean, our modern day lathes can, but they, the tolerances that are used. So it's like there was something that isn't there now. Why? But there was there had to have been an advanced civilization that took, that put all this stuff in place. Now, what happened to them? That's the greater question, that kind of thing. So it's,
Yeah, and Graham Hancock did point that
Yeah.
out. Like, the only way you could get stones to be smooth like this
Right.
is from heat.
Yes.
And
Well,
the only
that's-
way you could have heat is we don't have anything that does this.
right. And that's one thing that Brian
That he was talking-
asked was,
Oh.
he, because the builders and constructors mentioned that, how they were able to take a stone and basically turn it into a marshmallow and, stack them. And then at that plate that, they just form into one another and then
And then they harden up.
and then they re-solidify. So and then when you look at that, when you look in reality at some of these structures it's like, how do you because when you build a house or you build a structure, you just don't randomly take blocks and they just fit together.
Yeah.
You have to work with them. But typically you're not going to take and put a 90-degree angle to lock it into another block and so forth. You're going to try to make square blocks or rectangular blocks, or
yeah.
uniform blocks to do that. So yeah, to have them somehow melded.
Well, not
into
only that,
place.
we're not talking about small blocks. We're
No, we're
about
talking blocks that
thousands
are,
of pounds.
or even millions of pounds.
So you
I mean,
can't
yeah.
really even try to manipulate them into position.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but it's people like Brian Corey Dobbs that's going to, create that. He's doing like the scaffolding between the two.
Exactly.
To begin the questioning
thoughts.
process.
Yeah, and it's pretty fascinating.
Well, what's fascinating is that he's willing to entertain that and be that bridge.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a couple of years ago, that was not a thought.
Oh no, he explained.
Just like the rest of us.
He shined a little bit of his background with us while we went out to eat, and he said, "Oh yeah, my whole life has been rocked. I mean, it's been my brain has been like exploded open. So he said, but it's such a fascinating avenue that the more I look into it and the more I find about it, the more I want to seek information about it. So
Wow.
it's
What
just,
excites him is when he sees things that we've written that match with what he understands scientifically, and that's what's cool. Because I don't
That's that
know.
nexus of truth, right?
Yeah, and I don't know about the scientific stuff.
Right.
Which is, and he goes,
So
that's
cool.
even better. So sometimes he would ask me a question, and I'm like, I don't really know that because they didn't talk about that in the book. And he goes, that's even better because it makes you look more legit because you don't know that, and it's not like you're trying to match things. But then we received some information recently about the Andromedans and their role, and also the Venusians. So this is interesting. The Andromedans, because their galaxy is next to the Milky Way, we have the Andromedan galaxy, so they're more like overseers or observers of what happens in the Milky Way. That was one thing. And they said, and I want to ask more about this in a channeling and we'll update you guys, but they said they're watching for emissions from the sun and things like that, and our magnetic field and all of that sort of stuff, magnetic emissions and all of this, so that what happens to Earth is not what happened to Mars.
oh,
And I was like, oh, okay. I said, well, like,
right. The
What?
wheels start turning.
because in the book, all they talked about was the galactic wars threw Mars off its axis, but they didn't get into the nitty-gritty, and I didn't ask about how that would have happened. What would we know about that? Like, was it a sun emission, a comet? Like, what was it that caused it? I didn't ask the details. So now I want to ask the details, because that's what they were implying, and that maybe the same could happen here, but they said they can be intermediaries and not allow that.
Oh,
Really?
Yes. And the other thing is the Venusians were saying that they are, they hold like all of history. They understand everything from the origin point, not just of Earth, but of our whole galaxy. And therefore, right now there aren't very many people who have Venusians as their primary alignment or their source cluster either
Right.
way. So every now and then I'll have a person who has that.
I don't think we've had anybody as a primary. I think it's mainly been source.
Cluster, which is your secondary kind of.
Right,
That's
right.
interesting.
They said, but now, once all, if you've read the book or you understand this from the book, once we have everybody on Earth is going to ascend very soon. But that doesn't mean Earth is going to be not habited. There will be backfilling of people who want to come back to Earth. Humans are going to continue to populate. And those humans that come to populate after we have all ascended, they're going to come in and they're going to be, their body will be in the 3D, but their consciousness level will have been upgraded. They'll be at the lower fourth at that point when they come in. But they're still going to have the veil. And they said, so those humans are going to have, there are going to be more people with the Venusian alignments, because they want the humans to hold the memory of what has happened here in our galaxy with regard to humanity. And I said, well, why is it? They said, so their history is different and it doesn't happen again. I said, what doesn't happen again? And they're like,
Oops.
this whole,
Oh, never mind.
they said this whole thing about the galactic wars and the galactic manipulation and the galactic interference, where, remember how we talked about humans were supposed to be the point of this project, and they got to hybridizing and got excited and wanted power and all this sort of stuff, and so they got off track with the human project and all of that, and they don't want that to happen again because it messed with us, with humanity. So what they've realized is, and this was so exciting, they said, we've realized that humans can do it. They have ascended. You guys will have ascended in spite of all of that. You can ascend on your own without us helping you. And they said that's what's going to happen with this next group. They will be able to ascend, and even easier, because there won't be that galactic manipulation. We're not going to allow it again, we hope. They said it's always a possibility in the timeline, like every probability, any possibility in the field, but we don't want it to happen again. We don't want what happened to you guys. So we don't want that same history. So in other words, the humans that come in are going to have a different history.
Right.
And they won't have that manipulation. And they also said, this is fascinating. They said, so what happens is,
It's all fascinating.
it was just new stuff that has come in, that's kind of related to the book stuff, but I didn't know about this. So they said, when you guys leave and ascend, you're going to be leaving behind all kinds of technology and all of this stuff that these new humans are going to come in, and it'll be like you, when you find a pyramid or you find this stuff and you don't know what it is or what was it used for, and you try to figure it out, they're going to have to figure it out also. But it's in that figuring out that you become vulnerable.
Oh.
And you're vulnerable because you're seeking outside answers, like, what was this for? And then that's when the galactics can come in and go, hey, we can help you. Let me show you what that was for, right? And they do it in nefarious ways. So they want us to have the strength and the information in our DNA that the Venusians can provide, so that we won't be vulnerable to that. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
That whole thing,
That's really intense.
right?
There's a lot there.
Yeah. And she just has, Venusians can't do this again.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's
That's
fresh.
why you're
It's very-
Encyclopedia Brown.
Well, it's very fresh. Yeah,
it's
very
fresh in my mind.
Yeah.
But
Oh my gosh.
isn't that wild? That was just...
I mean,
Hello in my
it
mind.
is interesting to think about that, because I mean, here we are, how many ever thousands of years since whatever period, and we're, we'll say that Younger Darius thing, that 11,000, 12,000
I didn't even know
years.
what was that? Younger Darius.
Younger Darius event. It's
Darius?
Dryas.
Darius.
He
It's
just
a-
likes to put a lot of extra
I
vowels
put a
in
lot
there.
of extra vowels in the thing. Sorry.
Can you spell that?
No, I cannot.
Jungeress, I think.
That right there.
Oh, it's one whole word.
Well,
I thought you meant
hyphen in
younger.
between.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Younger.
It was
Dryas.
it was a cataclysmic event that took place 11,500 to 12,000 years ago, that basically wiped out the planet, and then everything kind of. But the theories are that there was some precursors to it, that certain civilizations knew this was going to happen, so they buried certain things, or they went subterranean. They built subterranean
That's the
cities.
whole Graham Hancock
Right.
Okay, well, I'm not
Yeah.
position.
And
terribly
then-
familiar
and then
with
from
all of his
that,
theories.
That's
Oh.
where civilization came from again.
Okay.
So it kind of wiped out the advanced civilizations to a point at which then they, some rebounded, but they weren't as advanced as they once were. So there's a whole thing about
Well,
it.
that's
and that's what the whole
interesting.
suspicious observers thing. He's
With the-
explaining the mechanism that will cause the next one, because
Right.
supposedly it happens every 12,000 years. And
But what's
yeah.
But what's interesting and what they shared in the origin story is that these resets, which is what they call them, resulted in an upgrade in consciousness, actually, not a downgrading in consciousness,
Yeah.
which is
So-
what we seem to think
Yeah, right.
from a
it's-
human perspective.
Yeah,
Is that
it's-
what you're
well,
saying?
And
Well, I think it simplifies the whole, like clears out the clutter, all of the crap that we think now, and we're so self-absorbed, not in a good way, because there is that, good way of being self-absorbed,
Sure.
but we're self-absorbed, like everybody's thinking about us or about me and what I'm doing and what, and the ego and all that stuff. So, it resets you to that,
But yeah, I mean,
food, community.
well, the
maybe,
centering
yeah.
of
Maybe.
what is it? Service to self versus service to others. So
Yeah.
right now, the majority is service to
No,
self a bit.
it's not.
Not in the way that you're thinking about it. Not in a nefarious way. What I'm saying is that self-absorbed aspect. We're more focused about
We're
many
more
of us.
focused on us than our neighbor.
Right, exactly.
well, yeah,
and then
yeah,
it
yeah.
takes an event, so say 9/11 or another catastrophic event,
Correct,
that
right.
then that goes to service to others. And when we want to help the community, want to build the community again. Well, when you have a catastrophic event to the significance of, say, a planet, then
Oh, just a planet.
right, whoever's
That's
left,
a big neighborhood.
right, whoever's left, it's all about everyone else. It's about community. It's about
Yeah.
building again. It's about coming back together. And so at that level, your consciousness is going to be more expanded, because you're when you're put under stress, when you're put under dire situations, your consciousness really is going to
Well,
be upgraded.
and that's
Focused
why
on the collective.
Yeah.
And that's why the collective and the galactics keep telling us that, unfortunately, in order for more people to awaken and for this shift to happen, there has to be some calamity and some disturbance and uproar, because
A disturbance in the
that's how
field.
you guys learn, they say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think about it. When a friend of yours says, somebody in your circle says, "Hey, I need to move." Oh my God, I'm sorry, I've got a job I got to do on that Saturday. They'll say,
Yeah.
"Well, it's the next Saturday, actually." "Oh no, I got a job then too." It's like, we don't just generally go out of
Right.
our way. It's like, okay, and it's so different when after we have those intense
Those
events.
moments, yeah.
Yeah.
They really talk about it in kind of in a broader sense, in terms of where we have these differences, where they're divided by this or divided by that, and we're fighting against each other. And then you forget all of that when there's a catastrophe.
Right.
You all have to come together to rebuild, like Asheville or something like that. You don't care what somebody's skin color is or who they voted for.
Right.
You just need help, and you need water, and you need supplies, and you help each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what they say we keep forgetting, and unfortunately,
And
you
that's a
learn
big
it through
one. Yeah.
chaos.
Yeah.
Because it's true, and Paul Selig his team has said this too, is that you don't have to have calamity. You could learn easier if you would
Yeah.
just figure this out.
Yeah.
But it seems like humans can't, or won't, or don't,
Right.
or whatever.
It's shifting. It's
Yeah.
definitely
Oh,
shifting.
it is. Oh,
but-
absolutely it is. Yeah. Did you have, was this
Oh,
something
yeah.
else, too?
Okay. So this was interesting. Now, a lot of people, I'm sure, have been, well, I say this just because I guess it's the algorithm that I'm on. So I get a lot of information about the whole Pluto
Wait,
transit.
Is this your TikTok algorithm?
No, this is even on
okay.
YouTube and Facebook. So yeah, I'm kind of hooked into this algorithm in a lot of places. apparently my interests are out there for all the social media networks to,
Right.
Anyway.
Think of a blue car and it'll be an ad on every social media you have. So,
Yeah, it's out there on the dark web. But so this whole Pluto transit thing where they talked about how the fire signs had all been under this, I can't remember, 14, 16-year thing of Pluto like messing with our lives and kind of blocking us. And like, and it's interesting because, it started in 2008 and I can see exactly like, oh my God, that's when like there were so many possibilities and then everything started getting shut down from 2008 on. And so my husband's, well, no, he's a water sign, but I think they were the secondary affected, I think was the deal. So, but my daughter is also a fire sign. And it involved, it was the two of us really, really affected by this.
Yeah.
So anyway, here this has happened and they're like, the gates have opened. Now you're free, go and explore and express. And now you're going to hit the time of, manifestation and moving things forward. And the thing is, like, I hadn't ever looked at that aspect. So the idea that the gates are open, it's like, oh my God, this is weird. And so I'm going through all of these different emotions about it. And just going, is it really okay? Can I really feel this way? Well, what's interesting is, and I put questions out there and I always get the answer like within 24 hours. And apparently I'm not really getting the message. So it keeps coming and coming.
Yeah.
And,
no.
And it's, so to me, I talk about the nexus of truth, like these nodes of truth or whatever, where, from so many different walks of life, different people talking about they're encouraging all of us. They're just like, just because things haven't worked out in the past, and they're not even referring to the astrology. They're just saying, just because you were met with these, these brick walls and trying so hard, they're just like, this is a period we're moving into. And so they're not talking just about fire signs. I'm like, this is kind of also a global kind of thing or whatever. They're like, this is the time for you to step into the fullness of who you are and, and encouraging all that stuff. And I find that interesting because it's like you get so whipped by a situation that you just stop trying.
Sure.
And, And the thing is, I'm Aries. I'm like, I keep forgetting it was hard yesterday. I'm going to get up and try it again, and I just keep trying to buck the system. So it is weird to be in that space now. But I guess that's the main thing was just that they're all talking about this now. So for anyone out there, fire sign, or I think the secondary signs were the water signs. I can't remember. But unfortunately, it's going to move on to other people, and they're going to have to deal with the kind of shutdown. Sorry, but really, I love these collective messages that just
when it all
reaffirm.
resonates.
And you just go, okay, it's time to create again. It's time to do this. So I just wanted to do like a reminder to everyone because I have to keep reminding myself, and I haven't gotten the message through yet.
And what you were talking about made me remember that, we're free now, but sometimes when you've been in a cage metaphor for so long that even if the person opened the gate for you, you stay in the cage because you don't realize, right?
Oh,
yeah. It's uncomfortable or you don't even know that the door's been open for all this time, right?
Yeah. So it's an illusion.
Right. So sometimes it can be difficult to take those first few steps, but once you do and trust that, then it becomes easier and easier.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely feels lighter. I mean,
I've heard that from a couple of people.
and that's a good
We've
thing.
definitely seen
Oh, yeah.
an increase in motivation in ourselves and excitement for no reason, like just being excited and hopeful for no reason.
Well, see, and aren't you guys water signs?
Scorpio is water? I don't know.
Yeah.
Suzanne will kill me because I don't know.
Yeah. So you guys are stepping into that whole, like the secondary signs that were affected too.
Except I did call Suzanne the other day because our blender went out
Oh, yeah.
right before Thanksgiving, and then my immersion blender went out the same week. And so I wrote to Suzanne, I said, why are my blenders going out? And she just cracked up laughing. She goes, Mercury's retrograde. I'm like, oh, okay.
Great, thanks. Thanks.
It's like ask an all-knowing being. Poor Suzanne. Like we're just like,
Right.
She's like, don't you guys listen to me?
yeah, because I throw that stuff. Oh, and so one more comment out to you, Suzanne, is she mentioned something about all these social media networks, right? And then she talks about this one called, and I've been trying to remember the name like this whole morning. I've been trying, for whatever reason, I've
Please
just
don't
been
say
trying to
blue,
remember.
don't say blue sky.
No.
Okay.
And all of a sudden it hit me right as you guys were talking about that, Mastodon.
I've heard of it. I don't know anything about it.
Is that
Well-
social media?
Yeah,
Yeah, it
apparently
is, yeah.
she found it.
Yeah, it is.
But it was so funny because I'm just like, when I saw her write that, I'm sitting there going, what? I kept thinking Megalodon. And I'm just like, which would
Or-
be cool too.
What was it? Metatron? What do they call him?
Yeah,
Megatron. Or
Megatron.
something. They call
Megatron.
Metatron. This friend
Yeah.
calls Metatron Megatron.
yeah.
So I'm so stuck on this name, Mastodon, like, and it's like, won't leave me alone. And then, of course, now out of the blue, I'm seeing Mastodon everywhere. And I'm going, I never knew this thing existed until she brought it up. And now all of a sudden it's a thing.
What kind of social media is it? Is it like a Twitter thing,
I
or is
know
it?
nothing.
Oh,
Like,
I don't know.
I haven't searched
I don't-
for it. Like I literally, it's not in my algorithms.
It is now because you thought about it.
I mean,
Right.
it's literally. I think it might have been Elizabeth April EA who mentioned it. Someone like that.
Oh, and I said her name earlier. I said
Yeah.
April Elizabeth. It's Elizabeth April. Sorry.
Elizabeth April.
Sorry,
That's
guys.
it.
Sorry, guys.
I thought that didn't sound quite right. But I went with the AEEA. But anyway, yeah. So it's just that strange sort of like, comes out of the blue, and so
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, apparently that's the nudge. There's something there for me. So I'm going to join you on that. I follow Suzanne around. I'm like, okay, you're doing what is it, Patreon? And so I comment on Patreon, and I'm like, I'm commenting on so many different places. I'm going to give her whiplash.
How funny. How funny.
That's what happens when you choose to be on every single social media.
And again, she's so busy. We'll have to remind her to watch this episode so she can hear us
Yeah.
laughing
Yeah.
with her, not about her.
Calling you out.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks, guys. This was so much fun. I'm glad that we have the chance to update you all. There's always just so much exciting stuff happening in our world.
Well, and know that this is the kind of like the conversation, that we
Yeah.
just had. That's the kind of stuff that I was craving that we would sit down and talk about, and
Yeah.
it's just like go from one thing to the next, and we're like,
Right.
ooh, what?
like we would over coffee.
Right.
Come visit us in Charleston. We can do this with you guys too.
Right. That would be kind of fun to actually have a
big
large,
fest?
like a big table, and just have the camera rolling and record a big, like,
Oh, a round table.
yeah, big round table chit chat about stuff.
Can you get us a bigger round table?
No, I'm going to actually make it smaller, so we all sit in each other's laps, and we just have to look over each other's shoulders.
We're busting them on the table
gosh.
size.
We're still trying to get used to our new set.
It'll be changing. It's evolving. I don't know.
As we all are.
Let us know if you have any comments about any of the stuff that we've talked about. We'd love your comments. Thank you so much for sharing. Go ahead now, because this was Suzanne's request, to remind you guys to hit that thumbs up, because it does help the algorithm.
Yep.
And the notification bell, and share with people that you find
Please. Yep.
on your path that might enjoy these conversations.
And even
Yep.
if they don't, send it. See what happens.
Right. Just
Just to
blindside
irritate,
somebody with it.
irritate
So,
your
You never
curmudgeon
know.
uncle or
You-
something.
You might hit them at the right time.
Right.
That's funny.
Exactly.
Yeah.
At any rate, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks for being with us
See
on
y'all.
Out on a Limb podcast. Until next time.